Well, my little project for today is going to be out of this vintage woodworking projects book. I've had it for quite a few years. It was one of the very first books I bought when I started, and I wanted to check when that might have been. It's copyright 1984, so right about 40 years ago. Um, and the project today is this racing firefighters. It's a little rail that the firefighters tumble down, and the first one on the bottom wins. So they're racing down. There's only a few parts. There's some side rails, the rungs of the ladder, the two fireman guys, and then little spacer blocks shown here that go in between. So I'll show you how I did that. The two side rails, I used this router table. I've had quite a long time. It still works. It's got an old Craftsman router mounted in there. It's not too powerful. So when I set it up, the 1/4-inch bit and this fence makes a groove in the wood very straight when you push it along that fence. I cut half the distance first, about 1/8 of an inch, and I did the other 1/8 inch on the second pass. So I made the two side rails 1/2 inch. It's made out of maple, 1/2 inch wide. My neighbor behind me, he's got a cabinet shop in his garage, and he makes a lot of maple cabinets. So leftover strips he gives to me, and instead of burn them in his burn barrel, I make them into toys, so they get used up rather than just for heat. After I made the two side rails, then it was time to make the little rungs that go in there. And what I did is I took my bandsaw and I cut some long strips of 3/8 wide by 1/4 inch thick maple, and then they're supposed to be 3 inches, so I set the fence at 3 inches and then cut them all at once. I believe there's about 10 rungs, and they're all 3 inches long. So the key to this project is going to be this width of this, because those firemen, they're going to be sitting on that 1/4 inch width as they tumble down, and the gap in the fireman must match this thickness. So the best way is to make sure that this full length is a 1/4 inch wide. The 3/8 length, width of it, the height of it, also needs to be pretty close, and you'll have to take the corners off quite a bit. At first I tried to use a sander and sand that corner around, and the firemen were seemed like they were going to hang up. When I put them on there by hand before I cut them the length, they didn't turn on there. So I set up the router again with the 1/8 inch rounding over bit, and I ran the 4 sides down there and knocked that edge, made it real round. You still have the tiny bit of flat on the top, so they are 3/8 across, but they're missing all the corners so that firemen will turn on there. Let's see the firemen. So they're not quite done yet. My wife, she wanted to finish them first. She does the painting. She's a much better artist than I am. She's got some skills. So they're not quite done yet, but you get the idea. And you can see the slot in there that rung has to fit in. So the best way is get the rungs 1/4 inch, cut these a little undersized. Maybe cut them just over 2.28, 2.30, somewhere in that range, because you got 4 slots. Make sure they're a little bit small. Then I took a hand file, big file, and I filed them down until they just slipped over real smooth over the rungs. And then after I cut the rungs and put them on, I polished them with 1500 grit sandpaper to make them real smooth, slick, so these would ride down them. And the finished product, once you get the rails in there, I also put some spacer blocks between those rails. You can see going up, there's in the side is inserted, so those rungs aren't going to move. And I cut those all at once too on the bandsaw, so all the spacer blocks are exactly the same length. So those distance between those rungs are very accurate. So the little guys sit up on top like this, and then they go tumbling down, racing down to the bottom. Yeah, those guys, they took a break. Yeah, that's the fire guys. And then down they go. And then to get them off, you just turn them halfway. Maybe with one hand I can. There they go. And then they come off. And so you know, even if a kid's doesn't have any brothers or sisters or something, no friends are over, he can play with this on his own and race the two fire guys down the down the ladder. And you see, down they go. And they don't fall off. If you set this rung a little too high, they can fall all the way off and then, you know, tumble onto the floor. I probably could have made it a little further distance so they're a little easier to get off. The bottom one is instead of 3/8 tall, it's only 1/4 inch tall. So they'll slide off there sideways. Now, of course, on the 3/8 side, on the regular rungs, they won't slide off. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this video. And it's an easy project. Doesn't take a lot of wood. It's pretty easy and not a lot of tools. Pretty quick to make. I finished it off in boiled linseed oils, non-toxic. Makes it last and makes it smooth. No burrs for the kids. So it should last for years and years. Anyhow, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.